definition of morals, and I've taken it from the Collins Dictionary. Morals are concerned with or relating to human behaviour, especially the distinction between good and bad, or right and wrong behaviour. Now, the word moral as such does not appear in the Bible. It doesn't appear, at least in the AV, but it hardly matters when you think that nearly all of the Bible is about defining what is good and bad in the area of human conduct. So the Bible is a book of morals. The Collins Dictionary also has a secondary meaning to the word moral. Moral, adhering to conventionally accepted standards of conduct, which reminds us then that there is a prevalent view nowadays that there is no absolute when it comes to a standard of morality, and that there is no absolute authority to tell us what is right or wrong. And so therefore the assumption prevalent is that people, human beings, have to work out for themselves and amongst themselves what is right and wrong. That is not to say that people don't have morals. As Mike said, there's a strong judicious system. It's a very moral world in its own way. Some of the rules are good, some of them are not good. And so if you like, the present system of morals is like an edifice built on shifting sands, the shifting sands of human understanding and opinion. And that house will come one day crashing down around those who live in it. Whereas Jesus said that those who listen to his teachings and put them into practice are like someone who builds their house on a rock. And we all know, the wisdom of that. As Christadelphians then, we take our moral values straight from the teachings of the Bible. We have very good reasons to believe that the Bible is the Word of God, and that God is the absolute authority, and that in certain aspects of our conduct, for reasons that he knows best, and for our good, he has set absolute standards of behaviour. Not for everything we do, of course, but certain aspects of our lives are regulated by God, and he expects us to live a moral life in the way that the Bible defines morals. So in the Bible then we have some explicit commands, and we can think of the 10 Commandments, which are very, very clear. There's no ifs or buts about that. Then we are given, there are not, as Nathan said last week, there are not laws for every situation we find ourselves in. And morality, it's about our actions in every aspect of our lives. There are not necessarily exact rules for every situation, but we are given principles to consider. And we are given case histories in the Bible. Look at the life of Joseph, for example. The lives of all these great Bible characters. We see them putting into practice principles behind which there are commandments. And we are given warnings and encouragement. We are given proverbs and wisdom. So God's done it in many different overlapping ways to help us in situations which are not exactly clear to us. And God expects us to really seek out in the moral challenges that we do have in every aspect of our lives, our working life probably in particular. There's a strong culture out there. I read an article by Stephen Whitehouse describing the kind of challenges that you have in the banking system, and he spoke very strongly about the pressures that such people are under. In my work, particularly when I worked for other people, it is really hard. You are faced with challenges of conscience, and certainly being self-employed, the old mind ticks away. And you have to think really hard, because there are a lot of pressures, there are a lot of conflicting rules. There's health and safety, there's so many different things that you have to work with, as well as at the same time in your employers are people who have got to meet so many specifications and challenges. It's hard work, and God expects us to seek out to really put a lot of thought to pray for guidance. And this comes across this evening too, that we do need to share advice with each other. That's why discussion is good, because there's perhaps 30, 40 people here, and they've all got their own life experiences, and we can learn ever such a lot from each other, from comparing notes. As the proverb says, in abundance of counsellors there is safety. And Jesus, in the Sermon on the Mount, as a good translation, he said, keep on asking, it will be given you. Keep on seeking, and you will find. Keep on knocking, it will be open. So God will enable us to find the answers to these crucial questions. He's not going to leave us in the dark, but we have to persist. And there is a lot at stake, because the decisions we make now can have consequences that go beyond our control quite quickly. We set in motion a chain of events, and we reap what we are sowing now. So it's really crucial we get it right. I'd like to suggest that the only way to deal with this is to go to the heart of the matter, because morality is the whole spread of our lives, but how our heart thinks will affect how we respond. Sometimes in a moment we have to make a quick decision, and we're going to have to live with that. So we've got to get our hearts right. And the battleground then is our hearts, and just quickly looking at Jeremiah 17 verse 9, reminding us of the problem that we all have, and not only ourselves, but those around us who we might be influenced by. Jeremiah 17 verse 9. We could, of course, have quoted Romans 7 and the battle that Paul had, the things that he wanted to do, he found it he wasn't doing. Jeremiah 17 verse 9, from the ESV. The human heart is more deceitful above all other things and desperately sick. Who can understand it? Verse 10 answers the question, I, the Lord, search the heart and test the mind, to give to every man according to his ways, according to the fruits of his deeds. So these things that happen to us, God allows them to be a test, because he wants to examine us. And King David knew as well as anybody what it was to have his heart examined by God. It was a painful experience. Psalm 51 verse 10, it's a fantastic psalm, thinking about our problem. He knew it was the heart. He erred in his heart long before he committed the sins that he committed. Psalm 51 verse 10. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. And David knew what God was looking for in this new clean heart. Verse 6. Behold, your delight is truth in the inward being. You will teach me wisdom in the secret heart. So it is right in our insides that we have got to get right. But how do we get truth into that inward part? Because it wasn't there when we were born. Hebrews chapter 4 verse 12. And I'm reading from modern version here. It does put it really clearly. Familiar words. Hebrews 4 verse 12. The word of God is living and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to the dividing of soul and spirit, joints and marrow. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart. Nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered, laid bare before his eyes, the eyes of him to whom we must give account. So it's about honesty. When we think of truth, that is a key characteristic of God. But as we've said, it's not one of our own characteristics. In fact, we find in trying to continue to live honest lives that we are continually swimming against a tide from within. And so what we have to do then is it's not just doing the readings, is it? It is really thinking and often talking to other people about what is really going on in this book. Self-examination is a painful thing because we often find what we didn't want to find, and we have to be honest with ourselves. So it is all about really searching out our inner motives. If we can't be honest with ourselves about why we are doing things, then we won't be honest with others, and we won't be honest with God. Certainly God is not deceived. So we do have to really sit down and in our dealings with other people, we have to think, are we doing this really in an honest way? Mike has spoke about politicians, and politicians have hidden agendas. Their language is often smoke and mirrors. They aren't really saying what they mean. Politicians do not move in straightforward ways, and we have to be careful that we aren't like them, because we'd all be politicians at heart with a small p. In comparison, let's look finally at a true disciple of Jesus in the making. John chapter 1 verse 47. This was right at the beginning of the ministry of Jesus. John chapter 1 verse 47. Jesus saw Nathanael coming towards him and said of him, "Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no guile." That is a wonderful thing, isn't it? To be without guile in our dealings with others. I wonder if Jesus will say the same to you and to me when we meet him at his return. Behold, an Israelite in whom there is no guile.